A goat man attacks a couple parked on Lover's Lane.
He was a nocturnal beast. There was fear in our hearts. We knew this thing was real, and he would kill us in a minute.
Zombie soldiers on the move.
I thought, wow, like, am I really seeing that? It was like having a bad dream that you couldn't wake up from, and it just wouldn't stop.
The notorious Chupacabra caught on video.
It's running, and it's creepy, and my adrenaline goes up. So I'm looking at this thing, and I realize this is a chupacabra.
And for the first time ever, solid physical evidence, an actual body recovered.
I have it right there, 2 feet in front of me. The excitement was overwhelming. I will never forget that day, ever.
In central Texas sits the small community of Lake Worth. Some 4,000 year-round residents live along the wooded banks of the lake. One of them is rumored to be a monster. Tourists and locals once flocked to the lake and its beaches as a summer paradise.
Casino Beach was established in around 1920, and through the 20s, 30s, 40s, this area was the premier area to come to.
By the late 1950s, Casino Beach was no longer what it was. The lake, contaminated from chemical runoff from aircraft factories nearby. Greer Island, in the middle of the lake, a rehabilitation farm for recovering addicts. Then, a series of strange occurrences.
I would hear these stories of things being stolen from cars, food items, and we would try to explain it away as well. The rehabilitation farm is just down the road a couple of miles, and the winos come and go pretty regularly out of there. Maybe they're just looking for food. The problem with that was when the rehabilitation farm shut down and some of those thefts continued, then it became a little more difficult to explain.
By the summer of 1969, the stories became all too real. While much of America was caught up in the excitement of Woodstock and the moon landing, a bizarre attack on a young couple out at Lake Worth's Lover's Lane would focus the town's attention on a monster.
What was that?
What was what?
There's somebody here.
No, there's nothing. Come on, Alice.
There's somebody here.
Come on, Alice. What the hell? What the hell was that?
Local musician Bill Morris remembers that night like it was just the other day. He had a front row seat when it all began.
Growing up, I heard many, many stories about many other spooky things that happened out there at Greer Island and in Lake Worth. And I got very interested in it, and I wanted to know more.
Ain't you got anything better to do on a Saturday night?
Eat cake. Nothing to do around here anyway.
Sorry.
The night of the monster's attack out at Lover's Lane, Bill was killing time at the local diner.
It was about 12:30 at night, and I saw this car come speeding down the road, and it pulled in the parking lot. The guy was real excited. He was moving his arms around, and he's practically in tears, you know, and he was scared.
You have to get out to Greer Island. There's something going on. There's something horrible going on. Calm down, partner. So what?
He told the police, get out to Greer Island. There's something very horrible happening. He told the police that he was parked out there, and this thing swung out of the trees and landed on top of the car.
Bam! Like right on top. And it reached into the passenger side. It grabbed her.
This thing started reaching in the window and trying to grab her arm. He got real scared and started the car up and drove off real quick.
My shirt is torn. It was hairy.
I mean, it was like something out of the Black Lagoon.
Seeing the fear in their eyes firsthand, Bill wasn't sure what to believe.
I laughed it off at first, and I thought, no. But so many people kept talking about it, and it kept on my mind that, hey, they could be something real. that was going on out there.
What was out there? Nobody really knew for sure. There were whispers about a strange hybrid creature, half man, half goat.
It was described between 6 and 7 feet tall, covered with hair.
Weighing between 300 and 400 pounds. It was also described as having other monstrous features on occasion, such as a scaly face and maybe a horn. It was often called the Mud Man or the Goat Man, as well as the Lake Worth Monster.
A week after the diner incident, Bill, his cousin, and 2 local girls decided to go party near an old cemetery above the lake.
It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. We went up there thinking we'd see what was going on and just have a good time. And these armadillos were running everywhere, and we took BB guns and started popping a few of them.
All the shooting seems to have unsettled something in the woods.
What was that? Did you hear that? Turn it off. Did you guys hear that?
We had our flashlights, and we heard this kind of sound in the trees. It was scary, really. And I know the girls, they were very much afraid. Then all of a sudden I saw shadows, I saw movements. It was bipedal, it was standing up on 2 legs. We didn't know what to think, you know. We thought it was a bear. It was not a bear. And then rocks started to come. There was fear in our hearts at that point because we knew this thing was real and he would kill us in a minute. It had to be the Lake Worth Monster.
Bill's experience was just one of many reported over that summer of 1969.
While everybody else was celebrating peace and love, something really scary was happening here in Fort Worth, Texas. It was a nightmare for the whole city.
Questions were raised. How could a goat man with fur and scales possibly come to be? And why Lake Worth?
There were always some people who thought that the defense plant and the Superfund chemical sites here may have created a monster in some way, or may have added to some animal out here morphing into a monster. That was just another part of our 60s suspicion.
Curiosity about the monster was running rampant.
I don't know if we should be here.
It's fine. Just park it right here.
One warm night, not long after the sightings began, locals started gathering at a gravel pit to check things out for themselves.
Everyone was showing up out here with cameras and guns and just doing everything they could to spot this creature. Of course, there was the fear. What was it, and would it harm somebody?
One couple almost didn't get away.
This car, the back end of it had been pulled out into the lake. The dirt man had come up there and picked it up and pulled it out there by himself out into that water.
They were scared for their lives.
On a summer night in 1969, Fort Worth residents went out searching for a glimpse of a goat man monster, rumored to stalk the woods. According to witnesses, they got more than a glimpse.
Someone saw it run across the road, ran up on the edge of the rim of this tall pit, and was seen running back and forth. It picked up a huge tire and launched it. It flew about 400 feet above everybody's head, landed in the other side of the pit, and of course, everybody just ran.
The Lake Worth Monster was the front page story on the Fort Worth Star-Telegram on July 10th and July 11th of 1969.
This was a horror story because the creature had displayed aggression towards people. So naturally, people were leery about going out at night.
Was all the worry for nothing? Almost as soon as it appeared, the goat man was gone.
People in the area say that the Lake Worth Monster went into hiding after 1969.
Nobody's ever found any bones. Nobody's ever found any tracks. It was a mystery in 1969, and then where did he go is another mystery.
It would be another 2 decades before anyone had an answer. Texas local Doug Sheldon is a married father of 2. The hardworking truck driver has always had a fascination with the unknown.
When I was a kid, I believed in the monsters. Of course, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, but that was about it. I didn't know of any other monsters that were out there.
By the 1990s, the Goat Man's mischief at Lake Worth was a distant memory. Doug Sheldon never imagined this monster would enter his world.
The summer after high school, we were all just having fun. We'd go camping a lot. And Mount Nebo was a place that we'd sneak up to. It's just a private ranch. The whole surrounding area is mesquite trees, cedar trees, just a lot of brush.
Summer, 1990. Doug Sheldon arrived to the outskirts of the ranch around 10 p.m. From there, he hiked on foot to meet his friends.
To get to the mountain, you have to go through a section of barbed wire. That's how they keep a lot of their livestock. And once I got through there, then it's just a matter of waiting through all the bushes and trees. About halfway up the hill, I heard a noise, like branches breaking. I started going towards it, thinking, okay, maybe that's my friends over there. They might be hiding from me because they think I'm the rancher.
Hey, guys!
I'm calling out quietly, and nobody responds. And I happened to look up, and that's when I saw a dark shadow right underneath the tree. I knew I was looking at a monster. I mean, this thing was big, and it was ugly. It was about 6 to 8. It was furry. And it had little horns, maybe 6 to 7 inches. I mean, my stomach just dropped. I was just stunned. I was like paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. It moved towards me. I was gone. It was fight or flight, and I chose flight.
Later, Doug found his friends. They'd never gone up to the mountain that night.
I told them there's a monster up there. And, my friends, the skeptics, they were laughing. They're like, oh, yeah, what did it look like, He's a boogeyman. Come on, let's go.
Wanting to prove that what he had just seen was real, Doug suggested they return to the mountain.
The moon was behind the mountain, so there was a silhouette.
See? There it is.
You could plainly see the bulkiness of his body with the fur, and then the little horns that poke out the top of his head. He was moving around up there.
I told you.
And he was howling. As soon as I seen this thing again, I was still startled with fear. But it felt good knowing that someone else had seen it, other than just me. My kids don't believe me. Most of my friends don't believe me. But I know this thing's real. The Goat Man is real. Some people call it the Lake Worth Monster. It's real, and it's out there.
To this day, tales of the Lake Worth Monster are still passed among Texans.
I would tell non-believers that there is something out there. And I guarantee you we don't know everything about those things. And creatures like the Lake Worth Monster, they exist.
In another part of Texas, an infamous monster is spooking residents. Deputy Sheriff Ellie Carter had heard the rumors about the Chupacabra. She managed to get video proof.
It's running and it's creepy and my adrenaline goes up. I kind of had a pit in my stomach because I wasn't quite sure what it was capable of.
Down in the town of Cuero, in south central Texas, turkeys outnumber residents by a landslide.
Cuero's like an awesome town. It has the home of the gobblers, the turkeys. It's just a great bunch of close-knit people.
Recently, the area has gained notoriety for something besides turkeys, something much more terrifying. A mythical creature called Chupacabra. Its Spanish name means goat sucker. And in southern Texas, the Chupacabra began establishing its vicious reputation. On August 21st, 2010, Jack County, Texas local Stacia Henderson had a violent run-in with a mysterious creature. A creature feared for its thirst for blood and blamed for killing hundreds of farm animals.
County 911.
There's a wild dog that lives half starved. I think it might have rabies. I mean, it's not even a dog. It's got fangs and it just fit a complete hole in my hand. It's some weird creature. It's got pink hair on it and bones and no fat. It's nasty. I think it's a chupacabra.
I don't know what that is.
Well, I mean, I know they say the thing ain't real, but I think we just got one.
When the sightings took place, the town went bizarre. It went crazy. There was stuff all over the news. The cops were going crazy. They were trying to spot these things.
Instead of the normal hunting, people started hunting chupacabra. But the chupacabra is very hard to come by. Nobody knows what this animal does. He's not scared of the human. He's very elusive. He's very quiet.
Few have been in the presence of a chupacabra long enough to get a look. Deputy Sheriff Ellie Carter actually managed to come away with video proof.
Growing up and being of Hispanic origin, as children we were told the story of the chupacabra, goat sucker, fairly often to keep us inside the house at night. And I really didn't put a whole lot of stock in it until I saw it for myself.
August 8th, 2008. The air was dry and still as Ellie and her partner, Brandon Riedel, were nearing the end of their shift.
I wish I was home.
You mean you're not enjoying big-time police action, rounding up cattle?
We received a call of loose livestock. We were actually checking both sides of the road to see if we could find tracks of cattle that had been out. And as we came around the curve, I saw this thing sitting in the road on its hind end, and Brandon hit the record button on the dash cam so that we could document the incident. It's running and it's creepy and my adrenaline goes up, and it was just all very bizarre. Because now I'm looking at this thing and I realize this is a chupacabra.
At first glance, it looks like a dog, but the head and the ears are massively oversized. Witnesses report its skin is without hair and gray blue.
I think it was fear, excitement, and disbelief all rolled into one. Brandon and I chased it up the road, and then it finally dove off under a fence line into an open pasture. At that point, I kind of had a pit in my stomach because I wasn't quite sure what it was capable of. We had witnessed something that very few had. I would say that I'm a believer that this creature exists. The chupacabra exists.
Even with the video evidence, questions remain. How is the craven creature in Texas related to the infamous chupacabra seen decades earlier? In this version, the monster moves on two legs. Its back is covered in sharp spines. There's a large alien-like head and huge glowing eyes. Its feeding habits are downright disgusting.
This thing grabs the animal. It has a anteater-like tongue that goes into one of these puncture wounds from the claws, somehow searches through the body and extracts strips of organs. The bizarreness of the entire thing is way more interesting than the idea of a vampire sucking blood out of an animal. It's totally unheard of, completely.
This chupacabra first gained notoriety in Puerto Rico.
That's thought to be the heart center of the chupacabra activity. This chupacabra, for the people that have witnessed it, is probably the single most terrifying thing they've ever seen in their life.
February of 1996. Joe Palermo began interviewing Puerto Rican officials and residents.
It's exactly about 6 months ago that the complaints started coming from all over the place here. Farmers were complaining about the so many animals that appear to be killed by this creature.
A local woman heard the chupacabra screeching on her roof.
My sister, don't open the window because the chupacabra is into el techo.
Then this woman saw the creature in her yard one night.
The eyes were lit.
Madeline Tolentino was looking out her window when a chupacabra attacked a young boy on a bike. The boy noticed a strange animal hunched over a chicken. While the sightings in Puerto Rico faded, a few years later, rumors about the chupacabra emerged in Cuero, Texas. The Lone Star variety is physically distinct. a sort of skulking, deformed coyote with its large fangs, glowing eyes, and predilection for blood. Locals in Texas are convinced it's the goat sucker.
Is this animal actually licking the blood out of the chickens?
Dr. Phyllis Canyon not only saw this creature around her ranch, for the first time ever, she recovered its body.
It was so close. I thought all this thing has to do is lurch to me, and I could be history.
In Cuero, Texas, residents are convinced the mythical chupacabra stalks their town. It kills their livestock, drains the blood, then vanishes.
I never want to encounter a chupacabra, ever. It's disgusting, it's nasty, it's gory.
Dr. Phyllis Canyon isn't used to trading in rumor or superstition. She's a certified nutritionist, runs a clinic, and a busy 250-acre ranch.
Steve and I, my husband of 35 years, we live on this ranch. We are very outdoorsy, so for us it gives us an avenue to be out in the wild. That's why we like it here so much.
When Phyllis heard rumblings about the chupacabra, she wanted to dismiss them as rumors. Only there was evidence she couldn't ignore.
And I started observing different tracks. This track had a different paw print than anything that I had ever seen. A coyote and a wolf are a very definitive forepaw, and this one only had 3. And so for me, that was my first realization that there was something different on the ranch.
One morning just after sunrise, she went to check on her chickens. The door to the coop was ripped open. Many birds were dead.
Whatever animal it was that came in and did it, tore a small opening into the chicken pen, reached in, grabbed it, pulled part of the chicken out, opened it up, drank the blood, licked the blood out of it. It was obviously not interested in the meat, and that's why the carcass was left.
This level-headed rancher was now worried. Whatever it is might come back for more.
It did not take me long to figure out that it was definitely craving just the blood. That in itself became an eerie thought to me. What is it that just wants the blood?
Finally, one night, Dr. Canyon got close to the creature.
And to think that I am walking in unprotected, not knowing if this creature was vicious or if this creature is sick. You got to be careful coming in at night because this thing could jump out of the tree or jump on you from behind a building. I was awestruck, honestly. I was awestruck. Here is the most bizarre creature that I have ever seen in my entire life. The proximity that I was to it was so close. I thought, all this thing has to do is lurch to me, and I could be history.
Could this be the mythical chupacabra she'd been hearing about? On July 14th, 2007, Dr. Canyon finally got solid physical evidence. An actual body.
Saturday morning, very early, about 6:45, I got a call that said that it was dead in the middle of the road. So I promptly went to the highway in front of our ranch, and there it was, right in the middle.
A monster rarely turns up as a corpse. Dr. Canyon moved the creature into her freezer to preserve it.
There were a million things going through my mind because I was so excited to get back and actually have it where I could touch the animal, where I could physically do an exam on it in my possession. And the excitement was overwhelming. I will never forget that day, ever. When word got out that I had it in the freezer, we had people try to break in. So we moved it to a secret location for 9 months off of this property in safekeeping.
With this flesh and blood specimen in hand, Dr. Canyon's focus turned to science.
So after all the months of having it, we sent it off to the best place to do forensics DNA on it. The result came back that this is not a coyote, and it's not a wolf, and it's not a dog. This is something different. So now, do we have DNA on a chupacabra? Maybe we do. And Cuero is home to it.
Dr. Canyon sent the animal's body to a taxidermist to preserve it. Despite what anyone else may say or believe, she's on a mission to prove to the world she's finally captured the chupacabra.
We find it fascinating that in Cuero, Texas, there is this animal that we call the chupacabra that has been known as the mythical animal forever. So now, having conclusive evidence that it is truly something different, I love it.
Coming up, a young couple's encounter transports them to a different time and place, where the dead come alive.
I thought, wow, like, am I really seeing that? It was like they were the walking dead surrounding us. The adrenaline was just pumping, my heart was just racing. I was terrified.
Texas is big, over 250,000 square miles. In southern Texas, the city of Brownsville feels like an entirely different place.
It's still not touched by modern times. We still have an airport that was built over 60 years ago. The phone lines are still basically the same copper lines that were put in place at the beginning of the century. It seems like time has passed the area by.
The perfect conditions for monster legends to grow. Then, add a history of bloody conflict.
Back in the 1800s, there was several wars fought there. The Mexican-American War, the Civil War. There was a lot of death involved, and because of that, there's a lot of weird events that people report to this day that, they're unable to explain.
The problem here, the dead don't stay dead.
That night is a night I'll never forget because it was my first real paranormal experience of physically seeing something with my own eyes that couldn't be explained.
Meet Barb Dexter, once married to truck driver Cameron Dexter. Back when they first met, life was an adventure, but always grounded in common sense.
As a child growing up, I heard different little folklore and different little stories about monsters and campfire-type tales, but I was always a skeptic about stuff.
One summer night in 1985, that skepticism would be tested.
We were about 18, we were high school sweethearts, and we had just started living together, and he had got a job truck driving, and every once in a while for something to do, I would go with him just to keep him company.
This time, the destination was Brownsville, Texas.
That day we had went to Brownsville to pick up a load.
Hey baby, can you hand me that towel in there, please?
They were running late, so we had to sit around and wait. And during that waiting period, we decided to go into one of the local truck stops and wash the truck.
This trip to Texas is going to be a really long ride. What are we going to do with all that alone time on the road?
Well, I know what we can do.
The truck was Cameron's pride and joy.
The truck was a big transport truck, and it had the snub nose with the bunk in the back. It had a Confederate flag on the cab on the side. It was like a sticker that somebody had put there at one time.
It wasn't until late in the evening they finally hit the road.
We decided that it was getting too dark, and we were both pretty tired. So he just looked for a little side road to pull over on so we could just sleep for a few hours.
Cam and Barb didn't realize they were parked on land that had seen terrible bloodshed and tragedy during the Civil War.
There is nothing around us. There's a little bit of forest around us, and mostly just dirt road and 2 ditches on either side with some tall grass. I felt a little eerie just because we were so far in the middle of nowhere and it was so unfamiliar to me.
Fears aside, Barb and Cameron try to get some sleep.
We were only laying there for maybe about 20 minutes at the most when we heard the first knock at the truck door.
I think someone's out there.
We're in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody out here.
I don't know, you should check it out. I mean, maybe one of the neighbors is upset that we parked here.
Okay.
Moments later, the couple is startled when they look out the window.
We could see up ahead in the distance, like somebody standing there.
I think I see someone. I'm gonna go check it out.
I'm coming with you.
Right.
I didn't want to stay in the truck by myself, so that's when we decided to get out and get a better look.
Barb and Cameron walk up the road and see a light up ahead.
Look, I think it's a porch light.
I see it. Let's go. What was that?
We could hear people talking, and it was fairly loud, but we could hear them, and we thought, well, where are they? They sounded close enough that you should be able to hear them, but we couldn't make out what they were saying. They seemed to be all around us, not just in one direction.
Panic sets in.
They all seemed like they were wearing the same thing. You could see it was like a darker military uniform.
They were soldiers, but more dead than alive.
We could see them and we could hear them, and we were just thinking, what the hell? Like, is this like a zombie apocalypse?
Let's head back.
On a summer night in 1985, near Brownsville, Texas, Barb and Cameron Dexter parked their truck for the night on a remote dirt road. Muffled voices draw them outside.
Did you hear that?
And as they investigate, they're soon surrounded by soldiers from another era with no business being alive.
We got the feeling like we were in the middle of a reenactment, but we couldn't figure out why.
Let's head back.
They didn't know it, but Barb and Cameron were parked on one of the Civil War's most tragic battlefields.
The Battle of Palmetto Hill started on May 11th, 1865, 34 days after Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant in Virginia. All of a sudden, without the Confederates' knowledge, the Union force comes in and starts invading their territory.
The bloodiest war in America's history had officially come to an end. But in South Texas, tensions boiled over. Men were dragged into battle all over again. You had these men, these Tejanos, who didn't want to fight, were told to fight, and they did their duty. The sound of retreat happens, and they start running away, because that's what they're supposed to do. And here's the Confederate cavalry running up on them and shooting them in the back. Angry, unsettled zombies still fighting the Civil War.
It was something definitely paranormal. It was like there were the Walking Dead surrounding us, and it was just freaking me right out.
The terrified couple try to get back to the safety of their truck.
The adrenaline was just pumping. My heart was just racing. I was terrified. Cameron turned on the headlights. They were standing right in front of the truck. It was like having a bad dream that you couldn't wake up from. Our reaction was, let's just get out of here.
The open road never looked so good. They might have dismissed it all as a bad dream or some bizarre trick of the eye until they got a look at their truck the next morning.
There was just hundreds of handprints all over it. And I was just shocked. Every time I hear strange noises in the night, it just puts me back to that time that I was in with the Walking Dead soldiers.
Barb Dexter was a witness to one of Brownsville's mysterious events. She's not the only one.
One day I was finishing up my field study at Palmetto Hill, and I could actually hear gunshots and cannon shots. And a cannon is very unique, especially a Civil War cannon. It's not something that you would soon forget. Why did it happen? I have no idea. But for that 2 seconds of my life, I thought I was back there on the battlefield.
In one place, The Walking Dead reveal a tragedy buried and forgotten. In another, a sinister creature threatens what's near and dear. A monster can even turn an entire town to panic and fear.
I do believe in monsters. I think there's still unexplained things out there in the world. We may think we know everything, but we don't.